Thank you, Neewer, so much for sending me this light. So I've got to say good things, but I'm also going to try to tell you where I think it could be improved. But thank you again, Neewer. It's fantastic to be able to have opportunities like this. Hey everyone, it's Jason and welcome back to the channel. So again, we're in my living room. Sorry, it's not a cool looking little set. It's just a living room. But anyway, I've had over the last year and a half the opportunity to, with the channel, people sending gear for me to try to use and test out and review. And that's what this video is it's another review video. And I mean, it's really cool. I've had Neewer send me these tube lights. Then I liked it so much, I bought another one. I've had Colbor send me this RGB light here. Fantastic. It's a great light. This was my first jump into LED lighting. As you can tell, we're talking about LEDs. This was my first on location LED. This is the Rotolight EOS, the original EOS. And this I think is still the OG because it's got some stuff that the others don't have, but yet this doesn't have one of the main things that I have really been enjoying with the LEDs lately. So one of the things that you really have to realize is two things. Again, LED lights, let's go more in line with RGB lights. They're not necessarily a need, they're a want. And I've had videos before where I talk about some of this stuff as needs rather than wants. And LEDs or RGB lights, they're not necessarily needs that you have to have. You need to have, if you're going to use light or shoot in studio, you need strobes or you need lights. LEDs often are a little bit more expensive. The RGB versions are definitely more expensive. So you really kind of have to weigh what you're looking for, what your needs are, what you're trying to create, and go from there. Like with a regular strobe, you can always throw gels on it. Gels are fairly cheap. You can easily put them over your lights and create some of the same things that you can with an RGB LED. That's a mouthful. So that's where I get the you don't need an RGB LED to create. But it does open some doors and it does make it a little bit more enjoyable. Sometimes it makes it a lot faster. Like if I'm using a strobe and we're going to go with one specific color gel here and another specific color gel here, I have to, of course, set those up. I have to make sure that the lights are going to look right with them. Like, are they actually pushing that amount of light to create the color that I want? And then do that for the same on the other light. And then we shoot for a little bit and then we decide, you know what, let's go with another gel. Now I've got to start that whole other process again. The really cool thing with some of these newer RGB lights is the use of an app. And the app makes it super user-friendly because you can literally just pull open your phone, change the color mode that you want on your light, boom, it changes it right away. All the intensities are still the same. Everything is the exact same. And so that to me is where the RGB completely blows away having to throw on gels. The biggest caveat to that is the LED is still not as powerful as a strobe light is. So there are definitely pluses and minuses to using RGB LEDs or LEDs in general over strobes. And then there's also many pluses and minuses to using strobes over LEDs. One of the coolest things about an LED is what you see is what you get when it comes to like a mirrorless camera. You can easily look and see what your image is going to look like right in camera with your mirrorless using LEDs as opposed to having to work out exposures and stuff like that with a strobe. So where are you at? Are you needing light? Then I would probably look at strobes. If you're wanting to play more and practice more and do more things, do something different, then maybe an RGB LED is the way to go. And I've had some fun opportunities to play with several. And Neewer recently sent me this new one. And that's what this video is really more about. It's the review of the NEEWER CB300 C. It's fairly new, so new in fact that when I was trying to figure out something, I could not actually find the manual on their website. So they need to update their website or let me know where the manual is because the only thing I could find is the older version, which is the 200C. But this is the 300C. 300 watts of power. You know, so this is very low intensity here. This is like at 6% intensity here on the light. I just turned it on. So one of the things that I've really been concerned with when it comes to LEDs is I shoot a lot of dance, and I want to actually shoot a lot of dance, and shooting it with the colors and stuff like that with gels is something that I would really like to do, but I've always felt like the LEDs are just not strong enough. This is 300 watts. The coal bar is 250 watts. And then I've also got an aperture 600, which is 600 watts. So what I've realized is, and we're going to jump into studio shooting. A lot of times in studio, you're shooting at 5.6, 7.1 on your aperture, and you know everything is in focus when you're shooting in studio. So to me, this is almost, it's not like unlearning, but it's just you're not shooting it at that high of an aperture. For me to actually be able to use this at 5.6, my ISO is going to be way up high. And that's not what I want. I don't want to have noise just to be able to shoot in studio with gels. Yes, I'm still shooting with a higher ISO than I typically would, but using a lens that's a 2.8 lens allows a lot more light, where it makes this a little bit more usable and gives you some of those cool options. And I've actually shot several sessions over the last 3 or 4 weeks using this light, the coal bar light, the aperture light, trying to figure out, you know, different ways and different uses for this thing. And I've been shooting some dance stuff with it. So I've really basically just been going 2.8 on my aperture, trying to go for anything that's posed, like 160, 200, or 250 on my shutter speed. And then my ISO is typically 500 up to 1600. So I'm shooting a higher ISO than I typically would want to, but it is giving me the option to use these lights the way I want to use them. So the unlearning part is, you know, again, rather than shooting it at 5.6 or 7.1, ISO 100, shutter speed at 200, my ISO is up a little bit higher because I'm at 2.8. Now, I would be even better if I could use like a fixed lens at like 1.2 or 1.4, but again, you don't typically shoot 1.2, 1.4, 1.8 in studio. You're normally shooting it a little bit higher, but those are just rules that are random and arbitrary type rules. You don't need to shoot studio at 7.1. You can shoot it wherever you want to shoot it. So if I did that, my studio space is a little bit more limited, which is kind of where I'm shooting with a 24 to 105 now. But if I went with my 85 at 1.2 or 1.4, I definitely would be much lower on my ISO. Again, giving me plenty of opportunity to use this type of light. So I just kind of want to basically talk to like that 1 year ago Jason and say, hey, just change up your settings in your camera and play with these a little bit more. LEDs, they're not as powerful, but you can always compensate in camera. And that's really what I've been doing, and just kind of trying to learn a little bit more is compensate more in camera to get better use out of some of these LEDs. And this newer one, again, let me turn it on. We've got the panel back here. So you can use the panel back here. You know, you've got your mode button, you've got your Bluetooth button, you've got a reset button. Let's see here. You've got a lock button and a fan button. And then of course you've got the dial. You can spin it, you can set right there on that. And that's fine. Where this really shines is in the app. The app allows you to easily pick colors, so you don't even have to get up from where you're sitting. You can just sit right there, pull up your app. As long as this is powered on, the app should connect right with it via Bluetooth. And you can change the colors right there. It's also got the color picker, just kind of like the coal bar light does. So you can look maybe at a specific color that you want to use, and you can use the camera on your phone in through the app and pick a color, and it will pick those colors for you. So the app to me is really where these shine. The cool thing with the app is I've got other newer lights like this, and I could actually set them all up in a scene and control them all at the same time using the newer app. So that's fantastic. I know like with Rotolight, the older Rotolights don't have the option to use an app for color. The newer Rotolights do. And so, you know, I don't have the newer ones. I've got the older versions. So I'm not using an app for it to control that. But this here is also just by color. This is not RGB. the newer versions are RGB. Pros and cons with this thing. Like, would I be using this in studio? Absolutely, and I've been using it in studio. I've actually just set up a dance mini session, planning to use strictly those, just shoot a little bit higher ISO, but I'm going to be able to use the gel colors and stuff like that. Again, I've been taking pictures, and so hopefully I've got some pictures loaded throughout this video just so you can kind of see what I've actually been using. This thing is actually very well built. I mean, I love the U bracket on it. It's very nice. You basically just kind of loosen it here, makes it, you know, movable there. I mean, just very well built. It's an aluminum casing here. I've got a whole bunch of stats that I'm going to get put up on the side so that you can kind of see what this thing is. But let me go ahead and read some of those stats to you while they're up in front. So the NEEWER CB300 C is an RGB LED video light. I'm not really even talking about the video functions because I don't really use any of the video functions for these lights, but the color temperature runs from 2500 to 7500 K. The gamma compensation, plus or minus 50. 17 lighting scene effects if you want to use that. The lux per meter is, with the standard reflector that it comes with, is 29,600 lux. That's at 1 meter away. Again, the quick color modes on there are the HSI mode, the RGB mode, and a gel mode. One of the things that I wish this really had was option for like a V-mount battery. Man, V-mount. NEEWER, think of I mean, being able to take something out on location and use something like this. Now, of course, you can use these, but I've always wanted something like this, RGB, to be able to take out on location for like a low light type shoot. You're not going to use the RGB light in the middle of the day. Again, you have to know your tools and what you're going to use your tools for, but you're not going to be using that light in the middle of the day outside. But low light photos would be fantastic with something like this, with a V-mount opportunity, or just a regular type of a battery that you can actually use and take it out on location. It does have the little hole here if you want to actually mount the umbrella to it. The app, again, is kind of where it shines. The wireless is 2.4G. And those are the basics of this thing. Now, of course, it also got the Bowens mount, which makes it super, super compatible with many different mounting diffusion options. So again, you've got the standard reflector that it comes with. NEEWER was fantastic and nice enough to send me the big 30 or 85 centimeter deep parabolic to use with it. You can throw snoots on these things just for more creativity. To me, the pros outweigh the cons with this light. So where I think this thing really shines again is in studio. That's where you're going to use this. I can use it as gels. It's at 300 watts. I really could use it for like a main key light to shoot like portraits. I'm probably going to try to be as wide open on my aperture as possible. And I'm going to say the same thing that I'm going to say about every LED light. The biggest con for the LED is the power. Even at 300 watts, you have a 300 watt strobe and they might be measured the same, but they're not going to give you the same output because that light it's not a burst of light, right? So you're just not going to get the same. And also that that 300 watts power is like this close to your subject. But that's the big thing. Versatility as far as mobility, I can't really take it too many places in studio. I've got to be plugged in to be able to use it. So those are my two biggest things. Now this light does come in at $450. Right now, till the 15th of April, they actually have a 30% coupon on their website to be able to get 30% off on this light. So if you act quick, you might still be able to get this light. At 30% off, that's like $135 off of this light, making this a $300 light. Is that worth it? Absolutely, it's worth it. I would definitely buy this at 300 bucks. Dude, that's fantastic. And maybe I actually will buy another one. I like the coal bar light. I really do. The problem is this one's $250. It would be really nice to have multiple NEEWER lights to where I can control my scene without actually having to pop up different apps on my phone, which is what I've been doing. The app for the NEEWER, the app for the coal bar, and then the aperture I'm having to do all, by myself, manually. So yeah, using the app would be fantastic. Using that 30% discount would be great. So if you can get it now, I would get it now. That is a great discount on this light. Definitely consider that. Will I keep using this? I absolutely will keep using this. Unfortunately, I'm coming to the end of my studio season as it starts to get warm, and since it's in my garage, I do not use it in the summertime. So I really am not going to get a whole lot much more use out of this other than probably the next 4 weeks. But come the fall, I'm going to be using this bad boy again, breaking it out a lot more and shooting with it. Where this again will really shine is if you can shoot with anything that's a 2.8 aperture lens or faster. Once you're at f4, you're going to be in a really high ISO. I was shooting some action shots in studio, and I think I was pushing 2000 on my ISO. You can use a denoise or whatever you need to use, but you don't want to do that in studio. That's my thought, is you don't want to do that in studio. So, you know, I know Canon has like a 28-70 that's an f2. F2 I think would be fantastic for this if you can go faster with it, or if you've got the space and you can use a fixed prime that's a 1.8 or faster, then your ISO is going to be able to be even less. And so maybe that's one of the next things I'll try, is see how this actually looks using it with a 1.2 lens or a 1.4 or at 1.4, 1.8. That type of thing, because I know that this thing will shine. It already shines at 2.8, and man, I might actually jump on that. The coupon code is US30, and it's on their website, $450, or yeah, $49.99. 30% off of that is going to give you a really good deal. I would highly recommend this CB300 if you're in the market to play and create different styled lighting in your studio. If you're not doing anything in studio, you don't need this at all. Studio use only. Studio use only. So if you've even made it this far, because nobody watches any of these review videos, I know I'm not super technical. I never have once claimed to be an expert in any of this. All I do is claim to be a photographer that uses this stuff. So for all those haters in the comments, there's not many, there's only a couple, but recently they're like, well, you claim to be an expert, you shouldn't be saying this. I never once claimed to be an expert. I've only claimed to be a photographer who loves to shoot. I've just been blessed with an opportunity to be able to have new equipment sent and test it out. So what would I do differently? I would make this thing battery operated if I could make it battery operated. That would make it a little bit more mobile and usable somewhere out instead of the studio, because as it sits right now, it can only really be used in studio. What else would I do, change differently? Of course, I would add more power, but more than likely, they're gonna be coming out with higher powered LED RGBs. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of some of the photos, and until next time, keep shooting. 30% off, what is that? That's a pretty good chunk. 30% off, 450, that's 45, 90, 135, 135. It would be really nice to be able to have multiple newer lights over, well, multiple newer,